Hello everybody and welcome to this edition of the Conscious Change Agent web show. I'm your host, Jack Butler, and the Conscious Change Agent web show is where we bring you conscious change agents, people who are mastering this new paradigm of inner awareness and outer effectiveness. One such person is my guest today, good friend and associate Ross Hostetter. Ross is the author, and I actually have this here in front of me, of the recently released fiction work, visionary fiction work, Secrets of the Field, available on Amazon. We'll talk a bit more about that later. In his professional life, Ross is an attorney, a veteran of over 3,000 mediations, and was formerly co-founder and dean of a national training academy that trained over 1,000 lawyers in the art of conflict resolution. He now teaches character, values, and the power of professional evolution to lawyers as both a seminar leader and coach and consultant. He and his wife Mary are also co-founders of the Fieldwork School, which is a spiritual home for people who want to embrace the power of conscious evolution to become vessels for the divine. Ross is also co-founder of Boulder Integral and lives here in Boulder. Great to have you on the show, Ross.
I'm one of your neighbors, Jack.
Yeah, well thanks for coming on the show.
Great to be here, thank you.
So let's start with a little bit of the Ross Hostetter backstory. I'm always keen to know, and obviously know a little about this because I know you, but what's shaped people to be the people they are and has kind of led them to do the work that they're now doing. So could you give us just maybe one or two significant moments or influences in your life that have really shaped you and your worldview?
Obviously life is a progression, it's an evolutionary progression. There's been a couple of huge moments. One is a spiritual awakening that I had that was really led me to write this book.
Yep.
That happened when I was a canoe guide in my early 20s, just out of the blue, without any practice, knowledge, merit, or anything like that, which was a big life-changing event. Another event was my good fortune to become a mediator and become involved in conflict resolution and be able to have a successful career in that business that spanned over 17 years, and it was good work in helping people get out of conflict, which is really going to be our topic today. And then I think the third thing is meeting my wife Mary. We're going to have our 25th wedding anniversary, 27 years together total, in about in about a month. So there's a little bit about relationships and getting out of conflict in relationships that I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
But I would like to begin by telling you a little story that came from my lawyer days, if that's okay.
Please do.
I was at one point in time, maybe like you, like many people, over-prepared for a lot of things that I was doing. And at one point in time in my life, I was a trial lawyer.
Yeah. And
trial lawyer was something that had a lot of stress, required a lot of preparation, and the culmination, kind of the apex event of a trial, is the lawyer's closing argument. That's where you get to show your skills and be Perry Mason and use all of your charisma and everything like that to hopefully influence the jury to vote in your favor.
Yep.
I was assiduously preparing with kind of my malpractice insurance in the background. And one way that you can do it is think of all the points that are really important and all the little things on a checklist and everything like that, and try to hit every single point and everything like that. And there was a friend of mine that was an old trial lawyer. He was a mentor, not really a friend. He was an old, gnarly, smoky drunk that had tried 100 trials, and he was, and had had an incredible reputation for getting successful results in trials. And I was particularly worried about this one case that I was doing, and so I went to him and I leaned across a smoky table, cigarette smoking, and he's smelling like booze and everything like that, and he says, "Rost," he always added the T, he never wrote my name, "Rost, you gotta leave that crap at home, all those notebooks, and you're not gonna be prepared for your closing argument until you can put down everything you want to say to that jury on the back of one side of a cocktail napkin."
Wow.
So I wanted to just tell our viewers that I have brought my napkin here today. Okay? And I have the summation of 17 years, 3,000 mediations, all of this spiritual work sitting on one side of a cocktail. Now look at that on the other side, on the cocktail napkin. So I brought this here as my notes. And I want to say that if you ought to hang on and stick with us, because the really juicy part is right down here in this last quarter of my notes about becoming unconflicted in relationship.
Saving the best.
So I've got it all on my cocktail napkin, and that's that's going to be my notes for today.
Very good. Well, it sounds like you'd now be a worthy opponent if it's were a courtroom. I'm sorry that it isn't. So as you said, we were going to talk a bit about becoming unconflicted, which is the topic you teach on. So let's just break that down. Are most of us in conflict?
Well, I think that conflict is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an aspect of life and an aspect of personal growth, which is not something to be avoided but embraced.
Yep.
And I think that many of us do spend way more time in conflict, in unproductive conflict, than we need to. And what I want to talk today about were common areas where people feel conflicted. One is in their work life, that they feel like their work does not match their interiors or doesn't match their skills, or that they're conflicted about what they do every day.
Yeah.
There's a large number of people that are conflicted about the culture in general. They may feel that they're in the wrong place, they may be living in the wrong time, and I want to talk about that, about how to get out of conflict with the world around you, and then also a little bit about how to use conflict in relationships productively.
Fantastic.
And, have a little bit of advice here in my cocktail napkin, winnowed down that I want to talk about. Yeah.
Okay, so top of that list is professionally.
Right.
So what's the advice for someone who perhaps is looking at this now and feeling like, I can resonate with you, Ross. I don't feel like I'm completely at one with how I express myself in my work.
Mm-hmm.
What should that person think about?
Well, in the work that Mary and I are doing in the Fieldwork School, one of the things that we basically teach three things. One is to see your life as an open-ended journey, and we have a method for doing that by following Charlie's little journey here in this novel.
Yep.
The second thing is to embrace the power of personal evolution, life moving through you, and actually have practices that are associated with getting enough energy in the system, energy in your personal system, your social surround, to be able to make some change. But specifically with respect to work, the number one thing that I would say is the cure-all, if there is a cure-all, which is to see your work, to have something larger than yourself be moving through you.
Yeah.
There is, if you look at the work of any genius, anybody whose name you know, the chances that they have seen their work, seen themselves as a vessel for something larger than themselves, and their work is a manifestation of that out in the world, virtually 100% are going to say that.
Yep.
So if you look at Michelangelo, he's going to, that there's something coming through him that was larger than him. I just saw a little documentary about Douglas Firestone, who invented the rubber tires. And basically he was just in what amounted to a kitchen cooking rubber. And he had this idea that he could figure out how to make rubber, work.
Universal,
you're in tires, and of course I drove here on some rubber that he basically invented, and O-rings and all that sort of stuff. Henry Ford, when you look at the founders of the United States, they felt that something larger than themselves was coming through them.
Yeah.
That is the mark of genius.
Yes.
That there is something larger than yourself. And we are entering into an age, and especially for people that are viewers on your show, the Conscious Change Agent show, where we're entering into the self-authoring age, where the things that were once the province of genius now are going to become the requirements of everyday life.
Wow. We raised the bar.
Yeah.
So just for someone who's looking at it and saying, look, Ross, maybe I'm I don't know what my theory is on spirituality. I don't know what my theory is on God. I don't know where I am with that.
Right.
So when you talk about something bigger coming through me, does that necessarily imply I need to believe in a benevolent universe or a God figure of some description, or can it just be, I want to do something that's about, say, all of humanity rather than maybe just my own personal ambition?
It does. People are at different places with respect to their spirituality, and some people will say that there's some sort of power of the divine that is moving through them, that they're becoming a vessel for the divine. That is a traditional way of saying it, and you see that in all of the major religions, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and the yogic tradition. You see that's really the idea behind it, either opening in the heart or surrender to the self, so that some sort of something can come through. I think that will never be the basis of a public agreement.
Yes.
I think that's a private agreement that you have between a certain subgroup or tribe, which can be quite powerful. But what I'm talking about is something larger than the self. Really is the power of evolution coming through you. It's pretty undeniable that we are changing. And if you look closely, we're changing certainly towards more complexity.
Yeah.
And that we are changing for the better. We are moving.
Yes.
We are moving somewhere.
So what's your? I mean, I'm with you on that. But
Yeah.
if I was devil's advocate, what's your key data for the fact that we are getting better, as opposed to just say more technological?
If you look at the anthropological data, we spent about 1.2 million years in having flint. Okay.
Strong.
And that was like stage one.
Yeah.
And you might have gotten better at having flint and a little better putting it on a stick and all that, but fundamentally the technology was that.
Yeah.
Then about 40,000 years ago, something started to change. It's clear that our brains haven't changed.
Yeah.
Our actual mechanism has not changed. We haven't grown a third brain out of the middle of our head or something like that. We're still using the same stuff that we had maybe 100,000 years ago. Pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same equipment. So what's changing? What has changed now with the fact that we're doing a 3-camera shoot in your house and you and I are talking about it, we can broadcast it all over the world. What's changed that we have the power to talk about spirituality in some sort of way without fear that somebody's going to come through the door and string us up?
Yeah.
Okay? What's changed that we can talk about change itself as something which is not just radically frightful, but that can be done consciously and can be moved along. So all of these are different layers of complexity that one can see that culture is evolving. And the internet culture that we're in right now is creating a field, a potential uninterconnected field, which is unlike anything that's happened on the planet before. So all that's evidence of the fact that there's cultural evolution that is happening. My view is that there is a way that we can decide to move that consciously, which can be beneficial for all concerned. One way to move that consciously is for us to take our gift or our calling and do the disciplines that are necessary to bring that into the world. So you and I, before this interview, were having a conversation about our websites and about our calling and about our business and why are you doing Conscious Change Agent? Why do I want to do a new form of spirituality? We have a calling to do that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we teach is the process by which that intuition about doing something comes into life. So can I use you as an example?
Let's go for it.
Okay. I know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're a person which I would say has some potential in the system. You have a lot of energy. You've worked on your intellect. You did well in school. For some reason or another, you decided not to take the proffered terms of life over in England, which would to become an investment banker or professor or something like that, and to come here to Boulder and sit in this living room in a relatively impoverished state, on a bet that you could do something that could change the world.
Yep.
So there's an impulse. I have that same impulse. That's why we're sitting on this couch together.
Yep.
Yeah. That there's a bet. This book was an impulse that out of a few little snippets of stuff on a pad, that there was something that was a calling, an impulse to create something, an impulse to make something better. Stage one of a personal growth process, or the way that we can begin to harmonize our work and not be conflicted in our work, is to say yes to that.
Yes.
Okay? Now, we may now get in conflict with a bunch of other things. You may have to move from England. You may have to move towns. You may have to learn a whole new skill set. But you're not going to be unconflicted about your work.
Yeah.
You're going to feel that work is right. And we may have to go through many iterations and failures to get the right vehicle right. But we're not going to be in fundamental conflict around it, because we know we've answered that impulse.
Yes.
That impulse, we have an impulse, we have an emotional yolk sac that's associated with it that's very precious, energy, and we come to a place where that impulse can be seen and recognized. And I would bet that's why you're here in Boulder. It's an impulse where it can be seen and recognized. My impulse couldn't be recognized in my hometown in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
There just would be nobody there that could see it. So I have to come somewhere where it could see it. And then the next step is to create a system whereby, and go through the difficult learning process of creating a system to do that. And then a question of whether or not what we see is really ready to have a life in the world.
Yeah.
And what is it needed? Is it valuable? And it's going to be needed and valued with somebody, and are we willing to make the choices that are necessary in order to do that, which may change things economically, may not. But throughout that entire process, and then through the process that of making our work a habit and being able to take whatever innovation we've been able to generate and turn that into something that's teachable to other people, that creates culture. That whole process creates another layer of culture, another layer of evolution. And by following that impulse, we are unconflicted about our work. I feel nervous about the work, as I was expressing to you earlier. I feel uncertain about it. I'm uncomfortable a lot of the time.
It's a different...
But I'm not conflicted like the way that I was before when I was a wage slave and when I was not following my...
Yeah. So on that, let's just say someone looking at this is a wage slave, and or let's just say you're doing some work where you feel, I'm not sure if this is strongly expressing my values, and I'm feeling some conflict around that. How do you know when it's time to change something about that work so you can still continue to do it, or how do you know when it's time to step out and say, it's probably not going to happen there, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences of stepping out? Because that's often the big decision for people, right? It's like, do I stay in corporate? Do I do something else? Do I, if this is paying the mortgage and supporting the family, or whatever other financial commitments people have, it's a big risk. So how do you weigh that out? Is that purely what type of person you are, or is there a kind of guiding precept that you could offer?
I am not necessarily a fan of taking a radical step. Although I think that there's points in life when that radical step is necessary. When you need to go into a monastery or move to a whole new town or take a radical step. We're going to talk about that in just a second, about getting out of conflict with your social surround. There is a balance in any kind of a life that you're in an ecology of circumstances.
Yeah.
And what of those circumstances are you willing to give up in order to create something new? So I think that oftentimes the security structure that we have and the lifestyle that we have really can be given up fairly readily. I did that once. I moved from a big house in town out to the country, lowered my expenses by 300%.
Yeah.
And it would allow me to begin another life or another activity. But there are ways that you can find in place your value. And so there's a way to get to the why of what you're doing and get to the yes of what you're doing. So there was just an article in the New York Times about a guy that was doing some work in call centers. So call centers are notoriously wage slavey type job, where you get a lot of rejection and you're pushing stuff on people and all that. And one of the things that increased performance at the call center was not the rewards and not the candy bars and everything like that, but stories that came in that said, what you're selling has really affected someone positively. The fact that you're doing this now allows somebody to have a scholarship. The fact that you're selling a vacation, look at these people that really had a great time on this vacation and it changed their lives. And so there's always a possibility of seeing the good that is being done in what you're doing right now and being able to feed off of that. So I think that that's it. If there's any sort of a pole star about when to do what, it would be that you stop. You know with kind of a cold, clear certainty that you're not doing good here. You're not following that thread of the good in some sort of a way. You become cynical. You become
resigned.
You're just resigned, or you're doing it for yourself, or something like that. So if there's not enough of the good, it's time to go. It's killing your soul. But there can be a lot of good that you can do. You can, when you're giving ice cream to people, you can smile at them. You can do an energetic exchange with them. You can do an awful lot of things. When you're cleaning their windshield, you can do an awful lot of things that for that, changing the energy of that situation and reimagining it and bringing positive energy into a situation. So it doesn't require a lot of external change, but it does require, I think, following this value line of the good.
Yes. How much in your experience is you'd be familiar with like Robert Keegan's work? He talks about immunity to change, often from like competing commitments. It can sometimes be that we're in conflict. Excuse me. Not necessarily because the kind of main thread of what we're doing is not fulfilling, but just because there are competing commitments in life, and being an integrated person who's able to manage a relationship successful and maybe other family responsibilities, as well as follow one's mission and in a career, and also have time for the good life and meditation, reflection, and the great outdoors that we have here at Boulder.
Right.
Piecing all that together can sometimes be conflicting, or can have a huge amount of demand on your time and energy. So I don't know if you can talk to that a little bit as like how best to bring that together. If someone is interested in an integrated life, or what we might say, inner success as well as outer success, they're not just going to compromise on one for the sake of the other.
We do live very complex lives, and we want to have integrated lives. We want to have it all, in the sense of having at least a good balance of work, our social surround, good relationships, health in the body. One measure of the quality of your work is its ability to produce in all of those domains. So when I was talking about the progression from impulse to imagination to having somebody see you, to have a system, to getting to the point where the test of your ideas is its life in the world. That's where you begin to take a look at, well, does it really work?
Yes.
Okay. Does it really work in all of those fields? And if it doesn't, the idea may not be that good, and you may need to abandon it.
Back to the drawing board.
back to the drawing board, or that the impulse needs to change in some way, or be corrected in some way, or maybe serve a different population.
Yes.
In some way, and so that's just happened to me with my work with the lawyers. I've done work with lawyers for years and years. I thought that I was done with that work, and it was going to come out and serve the leading edge spiritual community. And I sure want to do that still, and I want to do a school, but that's not something that's likely to meet our financial needs. And so that required me to take work that I developed in the spiritual work, repurpose it to begin to talk to a different audience, that I could really make a positive contribution there. But it wasn't the audience that I thought that I was going to be talking to. So I began to just split off into two audiences in order to solve that problem. So that's the way that I'm personally handling it. So, but it may be a change in the content. One thing I do want to say as a general principle is it does not matter who you help.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as a general evolutionary principle, we're all in this together. The whole now, 7+ billion, almost 8 billion of us right now. We're all in this together. Helping someone move from out of a victim mentality into a self-authoring mentality is a huge piece of work that moves the whole spiral. helping a woman move from just accepting, passively everything that is happening to them in a system, become more proactive. That's a huge move for everybody. So it doesn't matter who you help, as long as it's helping somebody move forward, and that we're helping each other move forward. So that would be one thing. You might just need to change your audience, and you think that you're talking to the elite. Well, maybe the elite may not be interested in you, but the person next door might be really interested in you, and you can do just as much good there.
Yeah. So what would that be in the context of someone saying, well, I feel like there is a certain particular tribe that I want to serve, and you're saying it doesn't really matter who you help. Is there not some kind of process of resonance there for people to work out?
Well, let's get into the second thing that I want to talk about conflict with your social surround, with the way that the world is. And I think we can have an answer to that question. My short answer to that question is that there are different circles of people that you serve, and that a lot of your needs for social coherence could be solved with a very small group of people that see the world the same way that you do.
Yeah.
And that isn't necessarily the people that you work with every day, or that you're serving in your work life, or that you're talking to. But it is really important to have a group of people that are inside your fences that get you.
Yes.
And that's different than your work.
Yeah.
You could be talking to people that get you in your work, but maybe not. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about values. And getting clear about conflict in our social surround. So just to tell you a story, Mary and I have been obviously together for a long time, and both of us have gone through a remarkable change in value sets already in our lifetime. So I'm 58 years old now.
Yeah.
Like you, I grew up in a very traditional middle class family. Going to a very traditional church every Sunday, very traditional small town, very slow-moving environment.
Yes, I never went to church. But
yeah. You never went to church? No. You better go back there and get that.
I grew up in a very atheist family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that my dad would describe himself as traditional middle class. If you're watching this, Dad,
Sorry about that, Dad. That's the way I've received it from you, though, that there were some of those values that were associated with that. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'll speak for myself. But anyway, so that was one level.
Yes.
And then I moved to what was at that point in time a big city, and got into modernist values, not knowing anything about it.
What does that mean for someone who's...
For someone that's never heard that term, that means moving from that environment where there's conformity is really important, where lack of change is really important, where faithfulness is really important more than success, where you would never want to drive a Mercedes-Benz around because it would be too ostentatious.
Yeah.
To an environment where none of those things are true, where you want to become successful, where success is now measured in metrics and money, where the atheistic atheism is the religion of the day. That things that are measured in terms of metrics, people moving the modern world that we live in, with all of its complexity, is a value structure that has a values gravity. We then moved out of that structure into a spiritual community that had what's called a postmodern value structure.
Yeah.
All this is to say is that we live in a world where we are all living in the same place, but we're living in different times. Different times.
Yes.
And those different times have different values. And in evolutionary, I think someone that is moving into this self-authoring age has the ability to see that and see how those values have gravity on you, and to be able to choose consciously the values that you're in. Yeah. So it's not taken as a pre-given. It's now it's a consciously chosen thing. And we now have the ability to connect via the internet with people
that are not now geographically based, but values based. And you see that now
Yes.
all the time in the internet. It's these niche tribes, people that are finding themselves through shared interests and shared.
Yeah.
And it really, and those communities quote interest. It might be interest. It might be an interest in fly tying. But the
It's also
deeper
values,
the deeper
yeah.
communities are the communities that share their, the same values.
Yeah.
Okay, so a value in entrepreneurship. That's a community that we're talking to on this show. A value of conscious evolution, conscious change.
Yeah.
So we share certain values. We begin to speak the language of those values, and we're seeing and being seen on those values. So the second thing that I want to talk about getting out of conflict with your surround is to see the surround as a values library, where there's multiple different value spheres and systems that are now being embedded one on top of each other.
Yeah.
That's the way evolution works. And to consciously begin to choose the best of those values, and to take a conservative approach. And by that, you're looking and saying, what does that mean, conservative? That means
Just edit that down.
that means conservative in the way that nature conserves things.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at you with my binocular vision.
Yeah.
If I really look closely, everything is out of focus except for you.
Yeah.
But I can go focus to focus to focus to focus, which makes the whole room seem like it's in focus because it has such a sharp ability to focus with my binocular vision. I can hear, I can speak. All these are compromises. Our vision's not as sharp as an eagle's. Our hearing's not as sharp as a fox's. I'm not as strong as an ape in my grip. I can only digest certain plants that are pre-cooked and things like that. They're all compromises, but they all work together in a way that nature has chosen to conserve as an evolutionary platform. There's more free-living microbes in my body than there is my body in terms of number of cells.
Yeah.
So there's very old organisms that are digesting my food. There's a very old sympathetic and parasympathetic fight, flight, freeze, feed and fornicate system that is running. There's a cognitive system that's running. We have all of these values that have been conserved, and culture does just the same thing. It conserves values.
And is it as simple as someone being able to say, this is the value system I choose? Is it as easy as doing that?
We are so influenced by values gravity, by the values of other people. I don't think it is as simple as that, as choosing it. But foregrounding those values and having a values agreement is fairly essential. The third thing I want to talk about, which is a relationship. It's very difficult to have a long, sustained relationship if you don't have a values agreement.
Yeah.
At least a substantial overlap in your values. So an explicit value, you can't rely anymore on the fact that your wife, Betty, came from the same town.
Yes.
Okay, that's the way that we used to rely, or that she was a good Catholic girl, or a good Jewish boy. We can't.
Hopefully Betty wasn't.
Went to
went to Duke or went
to Duke or something like that. And still, that's important to people that have values agreement, but we can't rely on that anymore.
Yeah, so much more open than that.
We're much more open than that, and that the values field needs to become more explicit.
Yeah. So what might be in a values agreement like that?
Well, the one that Mary and I have come to, just to give you a for instance, is that we had multiple values agreements based upon different ways of living. The old traditional way, the modernist way. We had a big house. She was an investment banker, and I thought I was a high-powered lawyer. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, and then we went off and we got into a postmodern lifestyle out in this sort of hippie thing. Now we're in Boulder working on this integral values field.
Yeah.
So this is some explicit agreements. One, our relationship is now turned from a relationship that's about children and security and getting retirement and built up and all that stuff to a growth relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's now an explicit values agreement that we had once. We did not have once, that we now have. We now see ourselves as wanting to see each other's potential.
Yeah.
So that's a relational requirement that we are seen and being seen in terms of the work that we want to bring into the world. So we're supporting each other in the work that we want to bring in the world.
Yeah.
We're constantly trying to find ways that we can harmonize that.
You mean literally work together?
Yeah, literally work together. And we have a commitment to work with each other in creating, in a beneficial imagination, to begin to see each other, to begin to create each other by the way that we see each other.
So powerful.
Yeah. So that's a different kind of an agreement that we're gonna.
And how easy is that? I mean, they're big shifts, right? To go from the kind of security and through the male lawyer thing, and then spiritual community, and now you're talking about integral value. I mean, each of those is a big kind of shift, and I'm presuming that you're not always exactly at the same place at the same time saying, oh, hey, we might want to rewrite that agreement today. Sure, let's do it. So, I'm just curious. I'm sure there are couples that can relate to that and maybe thinking, oh, maybe our values were aligned and now I'm not sure. And how do you manage that? Like, what's your advice to people in that situation?
Well, I have, I'm going to respond to that cognitively, the way that I see it as a map. And then we'll talk about how it works, like emotionally and physically.
Nice.
Okay?
Well, we're head types, so we can do that.
So we're head types. We got to get it. And actually, I'm not embarrassed about being a head type. And cognitive maps are helpful
For sure.
in interpretation of what's going on. So the way that I see a relationship is fundamentally as polarity.
Yeah.
It's a attraction and repulsion of irreconcilable forces that want to be together in a productive and creative energy field. And so it's a polarity. And one classic polarity, that unsolvable problem, so there isn't like one right way to do it.
Yeah.
There's never one right way to do it. Is the directing and allowing polarity, which you and I have talked about before, as a polarity. So when you're talking about moving forward, there's somebody that wants to move the country and somebody wants to stay here. One person is directing, okay, and there's a give and a take to that pass off between Mary and I, in terms of who's in the directing role and who's in the allowing role, who's in the directing role and who's in the allowing role, and to see the forces, the tensions, because there are good reasons for not doing it. Those reasons have to be solved in some sort of a way, and at the same time not to get frozen and be at the low end of those polarities and just to be in the same place where it's deadening. Where we can feel the deadening of the relationship. You can feel the deadening of yourself. You can feel that yourself getting angry, that you're feeling confined, and all that. That's a sign that you spent too long on one side of the polarity, and that you need to make a move to the other side. Okay, so too much movement and allowing, and too much, the conserving and evolving pole is a polarity. So too much evolving can be a disaster. You can outrun your support structure very quickly. And find yourself, way out in the booties, and then I'll have to retrench in a way that's not near as powerful and solid as it would be. Otherwise, you see that here in Boulder all the time. Growth junkies, they're constantly outrunning their support structure and relying on other people to be in the support structure. So I see it as as a balance of these polaric tensions. And you feel then, when you're feeling the dis-ease, okay, which you're going to feel in relationship, as an opportunity to make a jump to a different perspective. Okay, jump into oftentimes the other person's perspective, and to see really what's good about it.
Yeah, and that directing and allowing polarity, are you sort of presupposing how much each person should be in either of those places? Like,
no.
Could it be fine for one person to be there, 70% of the time, and one person 30, or
Sure, as long as you recognize the value of the other side of the polarity.
Yes.
And understand that winning is a disaster.
What do you mean by that?
Well, getting your way completely is the death knell of a relationship.
I see. Yeah.
You've broken the polarity. Now you're dominating it. You're not in a relationship anymore.
Yeah.
And then also just collapsing the polarity and fleeing it getting out of it or quitting in place or, doing whatever it does to avoid it, getting into, alcohol or whatever. That's a collapse of the polarity as well. So you don't want to exit it and you don't want to dominate it. You need to stay within the tension in some sort of in some sort of a productive way.
Yeah.
And so, into the third and final point that I wanted to raise in the interview about relationships and in a specific practice, the practice of a beneficial imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see a polarity, what manages the polarity? So if it's offense and defense in a football game, the rules dominate the polarity. If it's buyer and seller in a commercial transaction, it's this fiction of money that balances the polarity, this idea that there's some sort of value, there's something external that balances the polarity. So what could that be? What could be the harmonizing force?
Whole Foods.
Yeah, Whole Foods could be the harmonizing force. So the search for the harmonizing force is the key.
Yeah.
Is the key to this evolutionary
So what is it?
relationship. Well, there is no specific. Well, let me. I'll say what I've got today.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, asking the question, what is it,
Yes.
is a hugely important event.
And like awareness being curated.
Yes. So, what's going on here today in the house? What is the harmonizing force? And when you ask that question, surprising answers are going to come. Okay? We've been relying on the harmonizing force in this household to be the money that's being brought in by the wage earner. That's stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's stopped for some sort of a reason, an evolutionary reason. What now? It's calling for a new harmonizing force. What is the harmonizing force? And that can arise in dreams. It could arise, a child is a harmonizing force. So the quest for the harmonizing force is a really important topic. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, a specific set of practices that are harmonizing forces, what we're calling the beneficial imagination.
Yeah.
Okay?
What is that?
So the beneficial imagination, when you've really pissed me off, okay, I can choose to see you in different ways. One, I could see you I could see you in your context.
Yes.
With deep time eyes. And your upbringing.
Would you call it
With deep time eyes, your upbringing.
Okay. Yes.
Your upbringing, the context that you're within. And I'm seeing you as an evolutionary opportunity, as a growth opportunity. So one form of beneficial imagination in a couples thing is seeing each other as, we're all construction projects.
Yeah.
We're construction projects.
Yeah.
Everybody's a work in progress. So that beneficial imagination, I'm seeing you as a work in process, I'm believing you as a work in process, I'm seeing this as something that has a future.
Yeah.
Is a huge form of beneficial imagination. Maybe it's a future with me, maybe it's not. But I'm going to be in a relationship with you nonetheless. And our relationship has a future. I don't know exactly what the format of the future may be, but our relationship has a future. That's a form of beneficial imagination. A conscious one that I've been doing just recently is what I'm calling open looping, which is just feeling an energy exchange between you and I and saying, what's here? Is there tension here? What can be cleared up? And getting to a space where we can just be in this open space together, without an agenda, and just chop celery and be together, and you just have this moment of time, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And a connection of those moments of time are all things which build a relationship over time. You've got a lot of currency in the bank account when you have 1,000 hours of good moments together. Tremendous currency. So you start to build that currency in just an open space where there may not be any sort of agenda. So that would be another form of beneficial imagination.
I like that.
Seeing us as part of a field, or as part of a single organism that has strengths and weaknesses, I'm bringing something, you're bringing something, is a form of beneficial imagination.
Yeah.
Allowing someone to be right in seeing their gifts and doing whatever is possible to help them bring their gifts into the world. It's a form of beneficial imagination. knowing your language of love. Is
5 languages of love.
Yeah, there's 5 languages of love. So the answer is everything is a potential harmonizing force.
Yeah.
Everything is a potential harmonizing force. When you see it, when you're asking the universe, what is the harmonizing force that sits here? The answer is everything has that potential. And I'll close maybe with a story about a double entendre. What a double entendre is like in jazz music, something that has two meanings. One can mean something, and then the other is a sexual meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So like Aretha
Double entendre.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. And, so the song by Aretha Franklin, Respect, it was talking about, maybe about being respected as a woman, but it's also talking about sexual attention of the highest order.
Yeah.
I want a little respect when I get home.
Sure.
Double entendre. And so somebody that's in that is like constantly going, the love seed. It's got this potential,
Yes.
sexual potential associated with it. They're looking at every little thing in this,
It sounds like dominant sexual instinct to me.
And to begin to cultivate the idea that everything in our world has this secondary meaning as an evolutionary, it's a harmonizing force.
Yes.
The layout of this, the stuff in the living room, the way the tea is served, the way that I look in your eyes, the way that I'm preparing the meal, the way that we're doing the laundry.
It sounds like a form of meditation in action. Or something
Yes,
like
it
that.
all has the potential to be part of a beneficial imagination and a harmonizing force. So we're going to talk a lot more about that in the future. I'm going to be at your seminar in a month. And we're going to talk about that and get into a lot more of those sorts of practices of beneficial imagination.
Yeah. So if people want to connect more with you and your work and what you've got to offer, what's the best place for them to do that?
Well, if you really want to talk to me about getting deeper, you can call me on the phone.
That's novel. How do we do that? That's not an email.
That's not an email. 303-854-7746. You can call me on my cell phone.
Get that. We've never had that on the show before.
I'm in a values. We're talking about values. I'm in a little bit of a values conundrum with the internet, and all of the now different things that the internet seems to be put in a connected for. Seem like I'm putting up. Now we've got a video, now we've got a blog, now we've got a Twitter and stuff like that. So
Just call me.
you just call me, break through all that crap. We can have a conversation about whether we're some sort of a fit.
Yeah. Do we just give that number again?
It is 303-854-7746.
There we go.
Okay? Now, hopefully you're not going to misuse that number. Hopefully that you don't. But we're also down developing our Fieldwork School website. So fieldworkschool.org is a good place to do it.
Fieldworkschool.org.
And if there's
That's the one word.
if you're into coaching and consulting and teaching work, rosshostetter.com is a place to do that. And we're in the process of setting up a Secrets of the Field website where you can get information about the book and what's in it, and testimonials and some audios and all that. And that's all a work in process, so you can visit any of those places and get information. We're going to do some more work about becoming unconflicted. That it really has to do with those 3 strands that I talked about. One is the specific teaching, one is the being inside a story larger than yourself, and also energy work that introduces potential, change potential into the system. So that's our Fieldwork School, and I'm hoping that you'll come and visit us there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So just as we're kind of coming to a close, one of the things I know I've heard you talk about in the past is becoming the most evolved person in the room.
Oh, nice.
And I know that's also an offer that you kind of make to
Right.
lawyers. So, succinctly, what does that look like and take, and what is the benefit of being the most evolved person in the room, other than perhaps a sense of self-congratulation? But how does that really play out?
the feeling sense of being the most evolved person in the room is that you can see everything about the other people in the room, and you can value them, see the suit that they're swimming in, and oftentimes more clearly than they can see it.
Yeah.
So don't have any expectation that they're going to see you. Or see you as a leader, or see you, because people can really only see through their own lenses. They're not going to necessarily see you. So it's not this sense of depth connection that you have with them, except to see that everyone in the room is really part of you, and that what they're carrying, it has a potential dignity, and it has a disaster associated with it as well, and an obligation to try to bring that dignity forward.
Yep.
Which gets right back to number one. That is the walking thing of an evolutionary, to bring that dignity forward in every place, time, everywhere, and every win of your life. And that is a mission of work that you can be unconflicted about. There's no reason to question why you're waking up in the morning. You're waking up in the morning to evolve this world. So you got a good reason to wake up in the morning. So that is, the interior benefit of it. The other, I think, exterior benefit is that much of the desire to dominate drops away.
Yeah.
So you don't have to control someone else in order for you to feel right about yourself. The desire to control the external environment drops away. So you don't have to have that in just a certain way in order for you to be okay. That environment can move in a lot of flexible ways, and you can be okay with a lot of them as you begin to embrace different values and inhabit different, color temperatures of values and all that, so you don't need to dominate. And relaxing into the flow of what's happening, which would be this openness to this radically undetermined outcome. Radically undetermined outcome. You have to control the outcome. So I would say, to be able to see, number one, see and enjoy. Drink, the beauty and the goodness that's there in any room. Two, to have the impulse towards making it better.
Yeah.
And increasing grasp of the tools to do so. And three, to really have an alternative to the domination system. And a new way to create things in the world as a leader.
Yes. Which is emerging, right?
Uh-huh.
I think I see more of life beyond the domination model than...
Well, that's what I'm personally expecting of you, Jack.
Thank you. Like so, final thought. Where do you see this all going? You seem quite optimistic and positive for the future. Is that fair to say? And
that is fair to say.
If there's one thing that someone, other than connecting more deeply with your work, that someone might take away from this as I could go and try that on for size. What's your call to action for people?
My call to action to them is to progressively begin to embrace the power of the universe, the powers of the universe, working through evolution to become a radiant high potential field. That's my call to action. Start flowing with, instead of flowing against, flowing with the powers of the universe, and begin to become a radiant high potential field. So.
You got homework.
And when we figure it out, we'll tell you how to do it. Right.
Cool.
All right, I'm trying to see whether there's anything on my napkin that we didn't cover. I think we pretty much got everything. Yeah, there's some other stuff in the Fieldwork School that are going to be fun when we talk about public victory and cosmic victory. But we'll save that for another day.
Absolutely, we'll talk again.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Jack, it's
always
great.
a pleasure
It's great to
connect with you.
Great to sit here, sitting here in your living room and sitting with you and sharing this time.
Yeah, thanks for all. I'm just amazed at all the things that you've kind of brought together and what you're teaching. So, Thanks for your comprehensive view of what is going on. So,
Great. Now I'm going to save this, and if
send this to his
this
lawyer.
ever becomes a Jeffersonian type document and be framed in the Smithsonian, I will. We'll know we've got our brand.
You saw it here first.
Brand values up when we can sell this for 25 cents on eBay.
Very good. Well, good luck with your work.
Thank you.
Thanks again.